What's going on, my phenomenon? Super Safe Feed. I'm here bringing you part 16 of my playthrough of Avengers on the PS5. Hopefully you've been enjoying watching me play it. If you have, watch, like, comment, and subscribe. And without further ado, let's get back to it.
You're watching Justice Judge with Judge Justicing Judge. Tonight's top story is the president dead. Politically, yes. Otherwise, I'm told he's fine. But first, the vaccine Gestapo is at it again, mandating their sticky nickies and Fauci ouchies until all of us yell Heil Biden and join their zombie army of the vax. Our first guest is an American brave enough to stand up and say, "Screw you, science, I know Joe Rogan." Please welcome NFL MVP Aaron Rodgers.
Hey, Janine, it's great to be here. Remember when I hosted Jeopardy?
Now, Aaron, you're not vaccinated. So what? Who the hell cares? It's your body, your choice. And please never use that quote for any other issue.
Exactly, Janine. It's my body and my COVID. You know, I can give it to whoever I want. But suddenly the woke mob is coming after me. It's gotten so bad that State Farm called and they're not even offering me the Rogers break.
And straight talk, Aaron, because I never talk gay. Did you ever lie about being vaccinated?
My wet mouth. And told them, trust me, I'm more or less immunized. Go team.
And you said you didn't get the vaccine because it might make you sterile, which is so insane, I'm jealous I didn't say it.
Hey, and look, people can talk all they want, but at the end of the day, my record is still 7-1. Meaning, of the 8 people I've infected, 7 are fine.
Wow! Call this guy the bottom of the Snapple pack, because he got fat. Thank you, Aaron. My next guest turned Virginia as red as my face gets when I talk about nearly any subject. Please welcome Governor-elect Glenn Youngkin.
Intel provided by our friends at S.H.I.E.L.D. has revealed the location of an elite AIM squad. We have an opportunity to take them out before AIM can deploy the squad against the resistance. This is a quick hit-and-run operation. Take out the targets and return to us unharmed.
Now, critical race theory is something you talk about a lot. What is critical race theory? What got me elected? Right. But what
An elite AIM team is close by and on alert. Updating your HUD.
What's important is parents. Everyone knows
Every member of the elite team must be defeated.
Joe Biden, okay? And you know what? This is true. This is true. Glenn, excuse me. Glenn, excuse me. This is true. You know, a guy came up to me the other day.
Good job, Avengers. With this victory, you've weakened AIM and given the resistance a leg up. Keep it up.
And Christmas is canceled. Christmas is canceled, sir. And I said, we're not going to let that happen, Santa. And that's why I asked him to give Virginia to Glenn Youngkin. I asked him to do it. We did it. We did it together because it's a great country. Santa did it because he loves America and he loves Trump. Right, Glenn?
Wow, Mr. President, you're a genius, a patriot, and one handsome mountain of a man. And live from New York, it's Saturday!
It's Weekend Update with Colin Jost and Michael J.
Good evening, everyone.
Welcome to Weekend Update. I'm Michael J.
I'm Colin Jost. Our top story tonight, like it's been for as long as I can remember, infrastructure. Last night, the House passed President Biden's $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill, which should be enough to clean as many as 2 of LaGuardia's bathrooms. The infrastructure bill will also expand internet access across the U.S., which is great news because when it's more internet...
Avengers, our agents in the field have identified the location of an AIM data vault.
Democrat Terry McAuliffe lost to Republican Greg Youngkin. Virginia from Virginia, you would get a statue.
AIM has a set of turbines powering one of their emergency generators. Disable them.
Was fueled by support from white women who didn't go to college, which just so happens.
Destroy the turbine. AIM has sent forces to stop you.
Hey, did you know 1 in 3 clowns will have a clown abortion in their lifetime? You don't, because they don't tell you. They don't even know how to talk to other clowns about it. Because when they do talk about it, if you were a clown who wasn't the victim of something sad like clown sex, they think your clown abortion wasn't a righteous clown abortion. I mean, what the dick is that?
I don't think you can say that word on the show.
What, abortion?
Well, I guess kind of.
You know, it's funny, Colin. We're having fun. Just laugh. Hey, pull my finger.
No.
Laugh. I need it. I need you to laugh so hard. Like the way I laughed when the doctor asked if I got pregnant on the way over to the clinic. Which I wasn't very far along. Love that show. It's a great show. It's always a funny topic. It's like when you're not a wealthy person and your life isn't over without jokes. That's right. Come on,
Nicely done, Avengers. You wreaked some impressive havoc, and now AIM is scrambling to recover their lost research. More attacks like this, and AIM won't stay in power long.
It is some helium. Okay, Colin, here's my truth.
I know I wouldn't be a clown on TV here today if it weren't for the abortion I had the day before my 23rd birthday. Clowns have been helping each other and their pregnancies since the cave. It's gonna happen, so it ought to be safe, legal, and accessible. We will not go back to the alley. I mean, the last thing anyone wants is a bunch of dead clowns in a dark alley.
You were the clown, everyone.
Yeah, better disable comments.
This was sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Graham in Sydney, Australia. Just in case you haven't seen it yet, Jim, Virgil is back on the corny train and possibly off meds, according to Graham here. Did you see Virgil's response to your latest video about his response to...
I did. You were looking back to see if you were looking back to see if I was looking back to see if you were looking back at me. No, I haven't. We did talk about a couple of weeks ago. What was it? How did Virgil come up? That he had said something.
We've
or done
identified an
something,
AIM
we
facility
remarked
that
on
is
it, and
vulnerable
then
to attack. Though there are still...
volleyed back. So this is a back and forth, but I'm not... Actually, the only time I hear about what he says is when you read it to me on the show. So go ahead.
Head for the location on your HUD.
James Cornette is quite the nerve. I don't know how much I'm going to be able to read without laughing. James Cornette is quite the nerve. He claims my impact on the business will always be compared to King Kong's hog versus his big story.
What? Wait, what? What? What?
It just right away goes there. He claims my...
I swear.
I can't read it. It's so ridiculous. He claims my impact on the business will always be compared to King Kong's hog versus to his pink dog penis in comparison. Yet, I would never even allow him to be considered as a freckle on a pink dog penis by comparison to my Godzilla hog. Even my sponsor, Olive Garden, has banned James from all franchises as they know his lack of poise wouldn't allow him in such a fine establishment. You, James, may remember when you got hot at me when I told you not to twist Missy Hyatt's nipples. Remember when voluntarily begged to give Missy and I a bubble bath in your Kentucky trailer while you wanted to do the twisty and use her nipples as a volume dial while you cut a blatantly loud promo to her about how I am your Lord Almighty God. He also admitted while drubbing my back that my meatballs mesmerize his brain to actually control all the things he has ever done successfully.
Where was all this shit when he was on television?
Oh my God.
When he was on television, he just stood there with a sad look on his face. Now he's coming up with all this shit?
Examples like him stealing my role as the manager of the Midnight Express, or trying to use a spatula, but I told him to use the tennis racket as a pouring object. You're gonna use a spatula. All right, well, there it is. I mean, we'll stop there. It'll, I'm sure, continue at some point. Any thoughts on Virgil? Obviously, you quite upset him.
I hate that he's upset, and, you know, I thought the spatula was a good idea, because, you know, once somebody was Alabama jammed, that I could stick the spatula under him and flip him over. But, obviously, I've struck a nerve here, and it's something to do about it. Snap back and can put somebody's eye out.
I told him if anybody, and I mean, excuse me, he wrote, let me redo this exactly how he wrote it. If antibody, and I mean anybody, is gonna twist Misty Hyatt's nipples, it's me. The Gorgonzola gang, Marauder, and the meat sauce boss. That's gonna crank the beach. That's gonna crank the beef straight down. Now bow down to the meat sauce god, James, and show a little respect. Is he doing stuff?
I don't know, but I'm afraid somebody has spiked his Parmesan cheese. I think you should come out with another podcast because there's room for another one. Because, ding dong, the bitch got fired. Now, I've said at the top of the program, the air is cleaner this week. We can breathe a little deeper because apparently Podcast 1 has told Shitstain that his services are no longer required. And I did a little investigate.
These enemies must be defeated.
Some of what he said, but I did a little investigating and I found out there were no baby internet fight with another shithead. I didn't know this shithead existed on the face of the planet until I was on Twitter a couple months ago because I turned on my Twitter and there he was saying something or about here, whatever. So I went back and forth with him, but he was watching. But apparently this guy got a We're not talking about, you know, their top program here. We're not talking about fucking 60 minutes of goddamn And got the most heat possible. Probably in and out of the ring. And I worked hard at ringside. I yelled up, screamed my voice out.
Nice work, Avengers. This won't be the last time we mount an assault on AIM's forces, but this should significantly weaken their capabilities.
First time in front of people. I've never had any practice. I was never trained to do anything. The first time I ever took any bump, any move was in front of people. So a little trial and error there. That's why I feel the way I do now. As an announcer, I came prepared. I tried to push the talent instead of just myself. On booking committees, I was a paperwork freak. I over-prepared. I watched the outside talent in all the territories when it was worthwhile to do that. The point is, I just worried about my shit and doing the best I could do at whatever that I was supposed to be doing. And I may have got canned a couple times, but I always had a job, because if you get good at a lot of things, there's always something you can do, and if you do a good job, you know what you're doing, people always want you to do it, right? But I started thinking, did I do it the wrong way? Because what I could have done is what some other people do, Brian. I could have begged for my first job in the wrestling business, and then when I got it, I could have started burying all my co-workers to the boss, and I'd get over that way probably for a couple of years. But then I could screw the boss and leave with no notice to take a job with the competitor that I had begged for a job. But then within literally a couple of years of that happening, not even, I would contribute to that company going out of business, and then I would blame a lot of my co-workers, and I could have gotten lawsuits and etc. And then I could beg another company for work, and then bury more of my co-workers to that boss, and then I could have got so toxic at that particular company that I had to work for them in secret, and then get them kicked off their TV network, and then I could spend the next 10 years or so begging all the companies that I'd worked for that were still in business to give me a job again, and wonder why all of my co-workers that I buried and all those companies that I fucking cost money either hate me or make fun of me. So there was that way. Which one do you think works better?
You know, I'm not sure.
I don't know. Well, but anyway, my advice: work hard and be better at shit than the other guy, and you won't have to go whining like a whiny little bitch to the boss, because you will already be doing a good job. And then when you get over and you... The main event, I've saved this for last because I wanted to get some other things off
Recent
my chest.
intel suggests AIM is running further illicit projects in Venture Ridge. I suggest we pay the town a visit to disrupt them and remind Monica the Avengers are a force to be reckoned with. I'm scanning the area and will feed you prime areas to target. Stand by.
Just like when Vince Russo said that he could not vote for Hillary Clinton for president because woman was created from man's rib. And that's where I'm not making this up either, but he said this and meant it. Woman was created from man's rib, and therefore they should not be leaders because they were in a secondary position because they came
Disable the nearby hypercircuit station.
It's a simple biological fact that there had to be a woman first to give birth to anything, unless, I don't know, Russo's an asshole baby. That probably explains that. But anyway, guess what he said this last week? I'm not even gonna paraphrase it. I'm going to read, and folks, trust me when I say this, he's not saying this to get a stir or a reaction out of people. This is the kind of, and I think, and also he's so mad that after all these years, people are finally smart enough to him and figuring him out and realizing that everything that I've said and so many people have said about him is true, that he's full of shit, been full of shit all along, that he has lost it somehow and he's gone off the fucking rails. But this kind of shit is the shit that you have to listen to when you talk to this stupid motherfucker or when you deal with him. And it's the level of stupidity that will make your fucking head explode. And also, he's mad now because since all the people, the only success he ever had in anything was a 2-year period in the wrestling business when he had Vince McMahon and the greatest announcer of all time and a network quality television production facility and the 2 biggest stars in the history of wrestling, Steve Austin and The Rock, at the same time. And, I mean, you know, good God, you could take a fucking chimpanzee and sit him down at the typewriter with ammunition like that, and he'd probably turn into one of the better writers. He's mad now. And he just, I think he's sorry himself. So anyway, this was recorded on the latest episode of his podcast. Yes, he does vote for me. And it's funny, doesn't it? It looks like a joke. My bathroom is bigger than his office here at the castle. But Vince Russo, on the latest episode of one of his podcasts, claimed that if the marks and the dirt sheet crowd like certain wrestlers as much as they do, then they must be gay, or at least somewhere beyond exclusively heterosexual. He said the writers of a couple of the major wrestling sites, because, and we know he's talking about Mike Johnson and PW Insider, because Mike Johnson, every time that Russo gets caught doing something stupid or lying about something, Mike Johnson has the evidence, and Russo was lying about it. As a matter of fact, Russo emailed Mike Johnson the evidence himself. He keeps emailing the wrong people. And he doesn't like Dave Meltzer, and he doesn't like basically all the people that tell other people how full of shit he is. And he tries to discredit him. Sort of sounds like Donald Trump, who he apparently voted for. So Russo said, they all look like losers about the dirt sheet writers. They all look like marks. And this is verbatim. Russo claimed he has no problem with the gay community, saying, bro, whatever floats your boat, who cares? It's not up to me to judge you. I've worked with gay wrestlers. I could care less. With that being said, I'm looking at these kind of individuals and I'm looking at their reactions to other people. That's what we're talking about here. The way they react to Kevin Owens, the way they react to Samoa Joe and Finn Balor, their reactions to other men. I just watched the Giants game. I'm not whacking myself off when Buster Posey comes to the plate. I'm not taking it out and playing with it, and I love Buster Posey. But I love him in the sense that he's on my team and I want him to win. But I don't start chanting, this is awesome, when he steps up this simple, bro. You're either A, homosexual, okay, you like men. For you to react this way, you have to like men. B, you're either not homosexual but have homosexual tendencies, or C, you're in the closet. It's that simple, bro, because men do not react to other men that way. It's not a normal function, bro. I had someone tweet me after I made a tweet that Finn Balor has to hit the gym. Bro, I literally had a guy send me a picture of Finn Balor with his shirt off. Bro, you are probably a homosexual. If you are searching the internet for pictures of Finn Balor without his shirt on and taking the time to send it to me, you fall in one of these categories. Let me just let all that sink in for just a second. Let's Okay, first of all, it ain't hard to find a picture of a professional wrestler on the internet without a shirt on. Secondly, if you question his physical fitness, and that's like me questioning somebody's physical fitness, because if you notice, that's something I don't do, because I got no room to talk there. If you question the guy's physical fitness, and somebody responds by sending you a picture of the guy who looks in much better physical shape than you have ever been in your sorry, mis-fucking informed life, then I think that's an accurate response. And lastly, but not even lastly, we're going to talk about this for a minute, but lastly on this, yes, the guy took time to send it to you to tell you, Vince Russo, you fucking piece of shit, that you're an idiot. Just like everybody now is figuring out you're an idiot. The things you say, remember when I said it used to drive me crazy to be in the room with this motherfucker and I would leave with a twitch? This kind of shit's why, and he wasn't even religious then. And it still would drive you insane to listen to the fucking verbal effluvia and the stream, the literal river, the goddamn waterfall of ignorance that comes out of his mouth about every subject. And now he's mad. I've criticized the This Is Awesome crowd for thinking that things are awesome that don't necessarily draw money and aren't really awesome. But I never said they were gay. I just said they ought to be a little bit smarter about the wrestling business. The very business, the only success that he's ever had in his miserable life, he failed at running a video store. He obviously failed, even though he said he went to school for journalism. He obviously failed at journalism because he can't even spell. He failed at running his first website because he tried to fucking cheat the guy that was actually doing all the work, and that fell apart. You remember that? He's failed at every wrestling venture he's ever had in the last 25 years, except for that 2-year period with all those advantages. He is a failure. Failure as a calling them all gay when he's been in the same business that they supposedly love and that they do love and that he should have loved, because that's the business he was in. And it's the only thing that's ever given him any measure of success whatsoever is wrestling. And now everybody that likes wrestling is apparently gay, which in his mind equates to bad. You know what his problem is? Women don't want to fuck him, and no guy would want to suck his dick. That's what his problem is. I'm waiting for the goddamn picture of Vince Russo with a blow-up sheep, because even a self-respecting living sheep would not want Vince Russo to fuck it.
Does this mean, if this is truly what he believes, does that mean all these years he's been writing wrestling, he's actually writing homoerotic fiction?
Apparently, and not even good homoerotic fiction. And maybe is this why that he always, every time he was in charge of a women's division, they were skanks and hoes and strippers, and they fucking had their tits flopping out, and etc. Because that's what he thinks of women? Is that why he was so fixated on Sable and her white cotton panties that I used to have to sit and listen to all the time? Can you imagine her in white cotton panties? No, if you want to trip my trigger, for one thing, Sable wouldn't do it, but if you put somebody hot like Sunny or somebody of that era that was really hot in some goddamn black leather and some fucking spandex and some goddamn fishnets and some crotchless stuff, I'm right there with you. But white cotton panties? What the fuck's the matter with you? Are you fixated on your grandmother or your grandfather? So this motherfucker legitimately says this shit, and I'm telling you, from knowing him, and since I've been right about everything else, and it's come to light over the past several years, I'm right about this. He's not just saying this shit to stir people up and get people to listen. He really believes this shit. He really does, folks. He really believes that a woman was created from a man's rib. He really believes that if you chant "This is awesome" at a wrestling match, you're gay. And he also really believes that the shit that he did actually was good. And now that everybody knows that it wasn't, and that the success that happened while he was around for that 2-year period was due to, oh, I don't know, talented people that were overcoming the fucking anchors that he was putting around their neck. He's help me try to understand any of this.
I mean, I don't know what there is to say. In 2017, when you label everyone who you don't like as being homosexual as some sort of verbal punishment, that says more about you than it does about them.
And I'm just, and how do you make that leap? Fans have chanted at wrestling matches. My problem with the chants, to be quite honest with you, is when I was a kid and I was going to the matches as a fan, people would chant for Jerry Jarrett, "Go, Jerry, go," or the Rock and Roll, they chant rock and roll, or whatever, cheering for the babyface. I hate it when the fans cheer and chant for the heel because that fucks up the whole psychology of the match and it's harder on the performer. Back when we were driving some of the match, but the Midnight Express couldn't even turn heel with as good as they were when they were in the ring with the Dynamic Dudes because people hit the dudes, man. It fucked up the match. Was not getting out of his podcast. He claimed that if the marks and the dirt sheet crowd like certain wrestlers as much as they do, then they must be gay, or at least somewhere beyond exclusively heterosexual. He said the writers have come to the major wrestling sites because, and we know he's talking about Mike Johnson, the PW Insider, because Mike Johnson, every time that Russo gets caught doing something stupid or something, Mike Johnson has the evidence and reports that Russo was lying about something. As a matter of fact, Russo emailed Mike Johnson the evidence himself one time because Russo can't figure out how to work that newfangled email thing, and he keeps emailing the wrong people. And he doesn't like Dave Meltzer, and he doesn't like basically all the people that tell other people how full of shit he is. And he tries to discredit him. Sort of sounds like Donald Trump, who he apparently voted for. So Russo said, they all look like losers about the dirt sheet writers. They all look like marks. And this is verbatim. Russo claimed he has no problem with the gay community, saying, "Bro, whatever floats your boat, who cares? It's not up to me to judge you. I've worked with gay wrestlers. I could care less." With that being said, I'm looking at these kind of individuals, and I'm looking at reactions to other men. That's what we're talking about here. The way they react to Kevin Owens, the way they react to Sami Zayn, the way they react to Samoa Joe and Finn Balor. Their reactions to other men. I just watched the Giants game. I'm not whacking myself off when Buster Posey comes to the plate. I'm not taking it out and playing with it, and I love Buster Posey. But I love him in the sense that he's on my team and I want them to win. But I don't start chanting, "This is awesome," when he steps up to the plate. It's not a normal reaction for men to react to other men in that way. It's not a normal reaction. Russo added, I'm sorry if you hear cackling. Stacy has just walked in the room and she has not heard this, and she cannot, she's stuffing a sweatshirt in her mouth, so is she. Anyway, Russo added, so I've come to the conclusion, if you're part of the NXT crowd, the people who were in Orlando, the This Is Awesome crowd, you fall in 3 categories. It's this simple, bro. You're either A, homosexual, okay, you like men. For you to react this way, you have to like men. B, you're either not homosexual but have homosexual tendencies, or C, you're in the closet. It's that simple, bro, because men do not react to other men that way. It's not a normal function, bro. I had someone tweet me after I made a tweet that Finn Balor has to hit the gym. Bro, I literally had a guy send me a picture of Finn Balor with his shirt off. Bro, you are probably a homosexual. If you are searching the internet for pictures of Finn Balor without his shirt on and taking the time to send it to me, you fall in one of these categories. Let me just let all that sink in for just a second. Let's ding, 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 ding. Okay, first of all, it ain't hard to find a picture of a professional wrestler on the internet without a shirt on. Secondly, if you question his physical fitness, And that's like me questioning somebody's physical fitness, because if you notice, that's something I don't do, because I got no room to talk there. If you question a guy's physical fitness and somebody responds by sending you a picture of the guy who looks in much better physical shape than you have ever been in your sorry, mis-fucking informed life, then I think that's an accurate response. And lastly, but not even lastly, we're going to talk about this for a minute, but lastly on this, yes, the guy took time to send it to you to tell you, Vince Russo, you fucking piece of shit, that you're an idiot. Just like everybody now is figuring out you're an idiot. The things you say. Remember when I said it used to drive me crazy to be in the room with this motherfucker and I would leave with a twitch? This kind of shit's why. And he wasn't even religious then. And it still would drive you insane to listen to the fucking verbal effluvia and the stream, the literal river, the goddamn waterfall of ignorance that comes out of his mouth about every subject. And now he's mad. I've criticized the This Is Awesome crowd for thinking that things are awesome that don't necessarily draw money and aren't really awesome. But I never said they were gay. I just said they ought to be a little bit smarter about the wrestling business. The very business, the only success that he's ever had in his miserable life, he failed at running a video store. He obviously failed, even though he said he went to school for journalism. He obviously failed at journalism because he can't even spell. He failed at running his first website because he tried to fucking cheat the guy that was actually doing all the work, and that fell apart. You remember that? He's failed at every wrestling venture he's ever had in the last 25 years, except for that 2-year period with all those advantages. He is a failure at life and a failure as a human being, and now he is mad. He's mad at the people who have come to the conclusion that, yes, he's a fucking failure and he doesn't have a goddamn clue what he's talking about. So his way to insult them is calling them all gay when he's been in the same business that they supposedly love and that they do love and that he should have loved, because that's the business he was in. And it's the only thing that's ever given him any measure of success whatsoever is wrestling. And now everybody that likes wrestling is apparently gay, which in his mind equates to bad. You know what his problem is? Women don't want to fuck him, and no guy would want to suck his dick. That's what his problem is. I'm waiting for the goddamn picture of Vince Russo with a blow-up sheep, because even a self-respecting living sheep would not want Vince Russo to fuck it.
Does this mean, if this is truly what he believes, does that mean all these years he's been writing wrestling, he's been actually writing homoerotic fiction?
Apparently, and not even good homoerotic fiction. And is this why that he always, every time he was in charge of a women's division, they were skanks and hoes and strippers and they fucking had their tits flopping out and etc. Because that's what he thinks of women? Is that why he was so fixated on Sable and her white cotton panties that I used to have to sit and listen to all the time? Can you imagine her in white cotton panties? No, if you want to trip my trigger, for one thing, Sable wouldn't do it, but if you put somebody hot like Sunny or somebody of that era that was really hot in some goddamn black leather and some fucking spandex and some goddamn fishnets and some crotchless stuff, I'm right there with you. But white cotton panties? What the fuck's the matter with you? Are you fixated on your grandmother or your grandfather? So this motherfucker legitimately says this shit, and I'm telling you, from knowing him, and since I've been right about everything else, and it's come to light over the past several years, I'm right about this. He's not just saying this shit to stir people up and get people to listen. He really believes this shit. He really does, folks. He really believes that a woman was created from a man's rib. He really believes that if you chant "This is awesome" at a wrestling match, you're gay. And he also really believes that the shit that he did actually was good. And now that everybody knows that it wasn't, and that the success that happened while he was around for that 2-year period was due to, I don't know, talented people that were overcoming the fucking anchors that he was putting around their neck. He's help me try to understand any of this.
I mean, I don't know what there is to say. In 2017, But when you label everyone who you don't like as being homosexual as some sort of verbal punishment, that says more about you than it does about them.
And I'm just, and how do you make that leap? Fans have chanted at wrestling matches. My problem with the chants, to be quite honest with you, is when I was a kid and I was going to the matches as a fan, people would chant for Jerry Jarrett, go, Jerry, go, or the rock and roll, they chant rock and roll, or whatever, cheering for the babyface. I hate it when the fans cheer and chant for the heel because that fucks up the whole psychology of the match, and it's harder on the performers, except, well, now it's not because they just have video game matches in a lot of cases, but back when we were trying to be baby faces and heels, it fucked up the whole match when the people cheered. It should have been some of the matches. The Midnight Express couldn't even turn heel with as good as they were when they were in the ring with the Dynamic Dudes because people hated the dudes so bad. And it fucked up the match because the shit that you would do was not getting the proper response. So yes, I have in some cases taken people to task for chanting things that you know just didn't make a lot of sense, but that doesn't mean they're gay, and it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with it. I'm sure there's gay people and straight people and everybody chanting this is awesome. And if it really is awesome, then why the fuck shouldn't they be allowed to chant that? They paid their money. I think it's somewhat liberally applied these days, but on occasion there are things that are really awesome, and when you chant that, you're not gay. There's nothing wrong with it if you are, because it has no bearing on this. And you know, if you're you know, but here's the thing, he's religious. He's a religious conservative. Tell me who is responsible for more homosexual pedophilia than Catholic priests, religious people of that ilk, and conservative Republican politicians.
You know, by the way, the quote you read left out the first line of what he wrote, which was, look at a picture of Mike Johnson, look at a picture of Dave Shearer, look at a picture of Dave Meltzer. There's a trend here. They all look like losers.
Okay, see, that was not in the report that I was so... Well, yes, yeah, he's saying that because imagine that. Those are the exact people who as my Aunt Lola used to say, everything you do gets blamed right on you. They're the people who tell folks when Russo lies, or when he fucks something up, or when he's completely full of shit or says something insane like this. They are reporters. They are journalists. They disseminate news, Vincenzo. And that's why you don't like him, because everything he does gets blamed right on him. So anyway, so now you know. If you're a wrestling fan, and I've never known this, and it's going to come as a shock, I guess, to Stacy, that we're going to have to get divorced now because I'm playing for the other team. And Brian, I never knew this about you. Suzanne is going to be upset.
Yeah.
But well, maybe she won't be. Who knows? You never know about that. But if you like wrestling, folks, and you're a guy, you're gay. And if you chant, this is awesome, or if you read or write newsletters, you're gay, according to Vince Shitstain Russo, the Archbishop of Talentberry, who has delivered the Sermon on the Mount. I guess he got this on a tablet from Moses, who was impersonated by Mel Brooks famously one time, and there were originally 15 commandments, but he dropped one. I have these 10 commandments. One of them is, if you chant this is awesome at NXT, you like to suck cock.
Who was the wrestler he pointed out wasn't in shape?
Finn Balor.
Finn Balor is not in shape, bro. Here's a picture. He is in shape.
You're gay. Yeah. What is he, 6? No wonder he lived in Colorado. He ought to be on South Park, Vince Russo. And then I heard Colorado kicked him out. Evansville, Indiana took him. If they wanted to give the state of Indiana a fucking enema, they'd stick the nozzle in Evansville. So I guess this his last sanctuary before he gets booted out to a fucking island somewhere in the fucking Pacific. somebody asked me what I thought about Kenny Omega. And this, as I was trying to formulate an answer, this led into a bigger topic that I thought we would discuss today, and this is something that can be ongoing. And we'd like the Cult of Cornette to weigh in on this, either on Twitter or by email or whatever means that you deliver your fucking ranting and raving to the world. People, basically, this is a loose list of people that I think should have never been booked again, that committed such a heinous offense against the wrestling industry that they should not have been booked again by anybody. In a perfect world, what is it that constitutes an automatic disqualification from the wrestling business, right? When do you revoke your permit that you've been allowed in this business? And if everybody would band together and do the right thing, nobody can ever be, as we've seen and we will discuss, nobody is ever permanently banned or disqualified or run off, but they should be sometimes.
Absolutely.
And now people are saying, well, I guess we know where his fucking head is on Kenny Omega, but here's my thing. I very briefly met him a time or two at some Ring of Honor events back 10 years ago or more. And I remember that some of the folks up there were hounding him at the time. He had the blonde curly hair. To me, he looked a little bit like Harpo Marx. They were hounding his matches. Athletically, he was very good. I didn't think his basics were bad. His training obviously wasn't bad. He was a guy that concentrated more on doing athletic flippy stuff than actually being a good professional wrestler, in my opinion, at that time. But I thought maybe he'd grow into it. He did have the annoying habit of shaking his head up and down like the Ultimate Warrior, which just drives me insane constantly. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Do you know where he just always bobbing the head up and down, like when Warrior would shake the ropes? Yeah. Many muscle guys of the 80s started doing that. But anyway, but otherwise, young guy had just started out, whatever. Haven't seen him since. Did see him on New Japan Wrestling on my DVR the other night when I started clearing a couple of episodes off. The only other interaction since then, 10, 12 years ago, whatever, that I've had with Kenny Omega was, I know Adam Pearce, when he was booking Ring of Honor, had him booked on the, I believe, Final Battle 09 event. And this was before Omega, I guess, lives in Japan now, or has been living in Japan, or is there a lot, but he's from Canada. And he had worked for Ring of Honor when he was in Winnipeg or Canada mostly, and then he was going on Japanese trips. But anyway, Adam Pearce books him for Final Battle 09. And then Adam sends me an email about a week before the show, and he says, look at this. And Omega had contacted him and said, I've hurt my ankle and I can't come and make Final Battle. But he attached a picture of like an ankle with some kind of goddamn leprosy or some horrible, awful, I don't know what the fuck it was.
What?
And Adam's like, was this I guess the supposition that Adam finally made of it, because he knew the guy or whatever, was that apparently he's saying he had hurt himself. And he was not going to make the date, but he was obviously ribbiting about this, elephantitis or whatever, the ankle. And then, of course, we found out like 3 or 4 days after Final Battle, he's in Japan working just fine over there. He just, blew the date off. So that's why, we have not seen Kenny Omega in Ring of Honor for quite a while, because that carried over for a while when you just blatantly, no-show the biggest show of the year, when I believe had agreed to up until the week beforehand and had no knowledge of the Japanese. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. So, I do hear over the past couple of years that Omega has quite a stellar reputation in Japan. So I watched this match on the New Japan show on AXS. Brian, help me. What is everybody raving about? I don't understand the broom thing. I know they go for the wacky gimmicks in Japan, and he's the cleaner. But I think the cleaner could be cool without a fucking broom. It looks so grade school. I don't see his facial expressions. He's a great athlete, to do the flippy stuff, but I'm not into his matches as contests. And as we'll go ahead and talk about, he's had the matches with the little girls and the blow-up dolls. But tell me what I'm missing as far as when he wrestles actual living men. What am I missing that Kenny Omega is this big star?
I don't know if I can answer that for you.
because obviously he's very talented and he's capable of being in a good match, but for me, I always find him to be too silly. I mean, you said you couldn't see his facial expressions. I've always seen that he's done too much of an exaggerated facial expression.
Well, as a matter of fact, I don't mean he was stone-faced. I mean, they don't fit. You don't believe. I'm not buying he's in a match.
Yeah.
He's a guy wandering around doing, an exhibition of shit.
Yeah, that's exactly the way I've felt, and I've never been, a big fan of his.
Well, apparently, oh gosh, Kenny Omega's re-debuted in Ring of Honor, and Kenny Omega's this big star they're going to push in New Japan. If that's the guy they're pushing in New Japan, I know they're not going to rely on him in Ring of Honor, but if that's the guy they're pushing in New Japan, they got problems, because here is where the automatic disqualification comes in. The crime's so heinous and offensive that you should be never booked again and banned from wrestling. Not because you lied and pulled out of a fucking date on Final Battle. Not because you are a shitty wrestler. He has, and this has been on tape, and I've seen them. Have you seen them? The match with the blow-up doll, the match with the little 8-year-old girl, or was it a 2-year-old girl, or what? He's had these in Japan on shows. I don't speak Japanese. Maybe you know the context better than I do. How do you present? How do you talk a true professional who has respect for the business that he's in? How do you talk him into it? How do you advertise it? How do you justify it on a show with a ring in front of fans having a match with a blow-up doll?
I can't justify that.
Do you have any context for this?
I think it was part of like a promotion that did silly matches and joke matches and had silly gimmicks, but
Well, then there is why, to me, Kenny Omega has disqualified himself in a perfect world from ever being booked again, because if all you are is a silly match, it's a comedy match, it's a joke matches, you make fun of what the real talents do for a living, and you hurt the business that the real professionals are in because you're a jack-off. And number one, until recently, any locker room in the country, you would have gotten your ass kicked by the boys as soon as you got back to the back if you'd have done that type of shit. And number two, the promoter, after he fired you, would make sure that you didn't get a chance to do it again anywhere else. And now everybody just either laughs at it or ignores it, and they should be ashamed of themselves too. But the fact that people have bad matches, or people do stupid things where everybody does every move and nobody sells, and it's all obviously a choreographed tumbling routine, is bad enough, but no, you shouldn't be permanently banned from the business. But when you do obviously phony, made up shit in front of fans on a wrestling card of any kind, and just not even expose the business, but just make mockery of it like that and spit on it, no, I don't think Ring of Honor, I don't think New Japan Wrestling, I don't think any reputable, responsible fucking wrestling promotion in the world should book this fucking, I've said before, I thought he should be boiled in oil. And that description, of course, before we get to the actual names that people have heard of, we've got to throw the dick guy in there too. I'll say his name this time, Joey Ryan. Most people don't know his name because they laugh at him on the internet when it goes viral that he's done a spot with his dick, and they go, oh look, that dick wrestler's doing something again. And then the third time, like the dog's fucking on the side of the road, third time you see it, you're bored with it and try to avoid clicking on the guy doing spots with his dick again. And the guys think it's cool and it's fun, and oh, he's getting over. He's a piece of shit. And he's making the business look like a piece of shit. And no, he should not be booked ever again when you do something like that. I know your favorite. Go ahead and nominate your favorite of somebody who did something. And this was not making a mockery of the business or making it look bad. This was a lot worse. But who did something that they should never got booked again. They should got disqualified.
I'll do that in 1 second. I think it's important to note for you that Kenny Omega's best friends with and teamed up with the Young Bucks in New Japan now, so that may tie everything together for you.
Well, I mean, yeah, no, and once again, I hate that I have to once again call this into prominence, but super kicking 8-year-old kids, but at least the kids sold it, for fuck's sake, but the Bucks, I like them as people, but they're so silly, and they're never going to learn, they won't quit, and it's the same thing, but even, I guess on that, it's like Ole said to me one time, he gave me that compliment. Cornette, I used to think you were a dumb fuck, but so many other dumb fucks have come along worse than you. You moved up the ladder without doing anything. But because they actually worked competitively with an 8-year-old kid, it's not as bad as doing a spot with your dick or fucking working with a blow-up doll. So Kenny Omega and Joey Ryan have made the Young Bucks look good without the Young Bucks cooperating in the least. All right, nominate your fucking disqualification.
I'm nominating 3 people because they were all intertwined. I'm nominating Jose Gonzalez, Carlos Colon, and Victor Jovica. Jose Gonzalez, of course, in cold blood, premeditated, murdered Bruiser Brody in a locker room in Puerto Rico, came into the locker room with a dirty knife, asked him to come talk to him in the shower, and then stabbed him and left. Carlos Colon and Victor Jovica were the owners of the company, and there's lots of different stories about what their involvement was after the fact. Tony Atlas, in his book that Scott Teal did, says that they basically came and commandeered the hospital when Brody was still alive, and next thing they know, he was dead. So who knows what happened. But what we can say for sure is they used their television after the murder to make Jose Gonzalez, Invader #1, a sympathetic figure.
Oh, yeah. This has been proven. This was seen at the time. They wanted to protect their investment because they put their business over the fact that their partner just fucking murdered one of their top stars.
Yeah, and look, there's all sorts of stories, Jimmy, about subpoenas arriving in the United States after the trial for murder had already ended. There's all these stories. I think they even ran
Dutch got one of them.
Yeah, I think they even ran a Bruiser Brody tribute show after he died. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, and this is why people who listen to my show, 605 The Super Podcast, know I have a real dislike for Carlos Colon and for his company. This is exactly why, because Jose Gonzalez murdered Bruiser Brody. It's indisputable. He went into that locker room with a dirty knife for a reason. And then his partners, he was the booker at the time, his partners helped cover it up and helped get him off and use their political connections to aid his trial, or aid his defense, I should say. And I can't forgive any of them, and I think they should have been thrown out of the business and possibly thrown into a ditch bleeding.
Well, and also, here's the thing now, this calls into a question, the phrasing of our exercise here, because should never be booked again. He was the booker. The owner, because I've talked about people exposing the business. Well, then people will say, well, Vince McMahon then should never been booked again. But Vince has never been booked because he's the owner. He's always been the owner. And so, if in this case, there could have been when there was a boycott amongst the talent. Puerto Rico, the territory, never recovered from that. Most of the top American talent never went back, especially the guys that were close to Brody. They never got the big names like they used to again. Years after the fact, some of that wore off because of then Carlos's sons obviously getting in with Vince and having a pipeline to at least some WWE talent, etc. But Jose Gonzalez definitely. I don't see how they ever had the balls to bring him back. I don't see how that anybody ever had the how did you need the money that bad to work with the motherfucker?
Yeah.
So that's one of those things. But as it's been proven, because that's why there's no wrestlers union, folks, and that's why they're considered independent contractors, the boys can't stick together. Here is something else. Another guy that was never actually booked again, but skirted that by running his own company. I don't understand why David Schultz or some fucking nut didn't find Eddie Mansfield and just fucking leave his remains in a fucking ditch somewhere. Because this was so much worse than what Kenny Omega and Joey Ryan and the Young Bucks, guys like that, do the funny spots or pull their pants down, stick their ass in people's faces on the independent show. We saw that one going around wild here last week or whatever. They're doing it now, and yeah, a lot of people can see it on the internet, but let's face it, the people that are actually going to watch that for more than 5 seconds on the internet are people that already know about wrestling to begin with, and it's not on national television, and it's not telling people stuff they don't know. It's not breaking new ground. It's just further demeaning the business. But when Eddie Mansfield got on 2020 on the ABC network in 1985, when WrestleMania was about to take place and attention at wrestling was at its height, And not only fucking because he was a underneath fucking talent. It had a fucking wild hair up his ass that he'd been screwed around and wanted to get back at everybody, whatever the fuck. I saw him wrestle. Eddie Mansfield was not a memorable fucking talent, nor did he have any groundbreaking kind of gimmick. He was an okay fucking guy you could have replaced 20 million fucking times at that point in the business. But he gets on network TV and tells a lot of people shit they don't know. And he had the balls to get back in the business 5 years later and run his own company down there in Orlando, his little independent promotion. And guys worked for him. A lot of them had never been in the business when he originally did what he did, but still, I don't know why somebody didn't hunt him down and fucking... That's where we needed the Jack Pfeffers of the goddamn world. The old time, the old days, the Paul Bowsers, the Jack Curleys, the people that would have fucking... He'd have been floating down the river somewhere. Eddie Mansfield was a piece of shit, tried to fuck up the business that a lot of other people were successful at, just for his own fucking hard feelings, and, you know, no, he shouldn't have been let back in. I never understood that either. I talked to, who shall remain nameless, a couple of guys who I like very much at TNA, who were like, yeah, when we were first breaking in, we used to get to work for Eddie Mansfield down here at his Universal, whatever the fuck, and I'm like, I never understood it. That he lived through that, much less ran his own company again, people worked for him. Never got that.
Yeah, Kevin Kelly was his color commentator. He used to air in New York, IWF.
And that's right, IWF or whatever, but you know, anyway.
All right, my next candidate.
Okay.
I'm going to stick on the topic of murder, and I'm going to stick on the topic of Eddie Mansfield, because he's tied into this too, believe it or not. Jimmy Snuka. I mean, now, all these years after the fact, you know, there's this trial going on, but it's not like this is the first time we've heard about this alleged murder of Nancy Argentino. It certainly isn't the only time he had an incident where he beat her badly and there were police involved. It's not even his only incident, you know, doing things to hurt the company. There was where was it? Was it Israel or Iran, or WWF in 1985 had a tour of the Middle East and Jimmy Snuka flipped out, and, you know, it was a big problem, and that was, I think, the end. That was when we finally got rid of him.
I don't remember the details enough to cite them, but I know what you're talking about. And yeah, and as a matter of fact, we had last year Irv Mushnick on the program here to talk about the case, because he obviously had followed it and was instrumental in getting it opened back up again and at least examined. And now, you know, here's the thing. If it had been an isolated incident, I would have always given one of the boys the benefit of the doubt. But when shit was going on that in public, when they had just been arrested and there'd been the domestic incident at the hotel just weeks before she died, and then just the questionable bullshit, and yes, you can't convict somebody without convicting them. You can't say, well, we're never going to book this guy again until he goes to trial or something is proven. But once again, Vince stuck his nose in on that. And I think it should have been settled a long time before now.
Yeah,
if something was found out about it, and that he was responsible, then no, he should have been booked. Now it's a moot point because he ain't never going to be booked again anyway. Is what I'm trying to say. But if something was done, then he should have. So something should have been done a long time before now.
It wasn't like anyone wasn't there. It was the Boys Hotel. He was the top star at that time. Bob Backlund was the champion. But Jimmy Snuka had, in just a few months when he turned babyface, become the biggest star in that company by far. By far. And
yeah.
A lot of people think that's one of the reasons why the fans turned against Bob Backlund, was you finally had this other guy you really wanted to cheer. So all this is happening. And at the same time, again, you can't dispute it. There's plenty of newspaper articles and police reports. He beat this woman up in a hotel in Syracuse, I believe. And then the second incident happens, and she's dead. And he has a history of being violent against women, and they still went with him for another. He was with the company for another 2 years after that, even after multiple problems. As I think about it, the Middle Eastern tour, I believe they found him with cocaine taped all over his body, and that caused a big problem over there. So I mean, it's just one problem after another, and he kept getting a free pass because he was a draw, he was an attraction, he moved merchandise, and again, you can't do anything about it now, like you said, but.
But think about this though. Karma kind of snatched him because that happened in 1983, and he was the biggest. he was the most popular star in the biggest promotion in the country, so he might not have been the biggest star in the business in terms of bigger than Flair or Andre or Dusty at the time. He was, you know, he was certainly top 5, and by 5 years later, at that point, wasn't he working bad ESPN tapings of the Showboat for Vern and pretty much gone? And on, you know, he self-destructed on his own. Maybe was that his punishment?
But then they brought him back. Vince brought him back in '89.
Yeah, but he was never, again, he never had another run after, he was pretty much done by, what, 90, 91? I mean, he began the endless cycle of the Herb Abrams UWF type of things. He was a shell of his former self. He was not working anywhere regularly, and I would not think was pulling down big bucks at that point, and that was a pretty quick decline.
Yeah, and again, though, he was also older than people realize, because when he hit in '83, I think he was already 40 at that time, or wasn't a young guy.
That's true, because, and actually, I remember seeing him in '83 and seeing him in 79, 80 in the Mid-Atlantic territory and live in Cincinnati, and the difference there was he was already declining, because, my God, he was an animal in the late 70s. He was just a beast athletically, like a coiled spring, and so, you know, he was older than people thought he was. Well, it's a sad case. I got some that may piss most people off, but I referred to it earlier. I said I've never been a fan of Nash, and I don't think his heart bleeds for me that much. But I nominate, as somebody who should have actually, without question, lost their fucking status to business, the Click for the curtain call. And I say this for this reason, because these guys were all four, within a space of a couple of years, given chances to make more money than they'd ever made in their life, doing something that only really two of them were really superiorly talented at, by a promoter that they then turned around while they were working for him and fucking shit on the business in that guy's biggest arena, the most famous arena in the world, Madison Square Garden, exposed the business in front of fans for no reason. It didn't fit anything to do with any story that was being told or anything that would help the company out. It was purely self-serving reasons. Baby faces hugging heels in public at a wrestling show in Madison Square Garden at a time where it was not commonplace to fucking happen. Jerry Jarrett said it on the program. What would you do if you had guys like that did that and wouldn't drop belts and held the company hostage? And he said, his quote was, it'd be like the morning after they shot President Kennedy. You'd be sorry that they were gone, but life would continue. He would have fired all four of them, because you can't have that. And I don't know why Vince McMahon was such of a pussy and so dickless, and for the genetic jackhammer with the balls like grapefruits to let these four fucking adolescent fucks jack off on his show and hold his company hostage and do all that shit and get away with it. I've never been able to figure it out. I wasn't a fan of these four because they hung out